we hope that we can resolve them. It's going to be televised, broadcast over the cable channels. The format is going to be as follows. We have an agenda. Once we've approved the minutes, we will turn to the public hearing. The representatives from Brooks Hospital are going to give us a little tutorial, if you will, a very small snapshot of what the project is like, because I don't know that everybody has seen that, and it may help them gain insight into what we're trying to do. This whole package, this whole volume, if you will, is on the village board. So if you have any questions, go out to the village website, and it's right there. And I think that'll help you visualize some things. After that's done, I've asked our village attorney, Mr. Guard, to kind of lay out the procedure, the process we'd like to follow tonight. The whole idea is to listen to you, so our responses may be minimal, but that doesn't mean they're not important. We want to have all the time devoted to getting your input. And so with that, do you have any comments, Chuck?
No, I don't.
Okay. We'll move into the procedures for the meeting. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the 8th February board meeting. And you all have read them, I presume.
Yes.
Are there any questions or issues?
Bill?
Okay. I have one on page 2, which is an addition because I think it's significant it came up. I'd like to add a statement in there that says as follows. It talks about the hospital area being cleaned up and made proper for this kind of facility. And one of the statements that was made, and we in evidence have, it is certified to meet New York State commercial standards. And I think that's a significant statement that we discussed at that meeting. So I would like to add that to the minutes, if anybody has no objections. Okay, so I can't make a motion. Can you make a motion to add that?
Make a motion to accept that.
Okay. Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We want to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as amended. So let's get on with the public hearing. Where'd Mark go? Oh, there he is. Mark, would you introduce yourself and walk us through what we're...
Sure. Good evening. My name is Mark Romanowski. I'm attorney for the project sponsor, Brooks Memorial TLC Hospital System, with respect to the proposed new hospital at this property located in the village of Fredonia on the corners of Route 60 and 20. We've been before the board itself several times now, discussing the project, introducing it to the board. So my purpose tonight is to just give a broad overview of the project itself for the members of the public that are in attendance that may not have heard regarding the project or understand some of the broader details. And certainly after the public comment period is complete, if there's any questions or that are raised, we'll be happy to get up and respond with that. Tonight I also have the team from Clark Patterson, both engineers and architects, as well as representative from the hospital. In case we get into any real technical issues, they're here to be able to respond and provide information. As we've discussed previously, the property is located as a 30-acre property located at an intersection of a couple of the main commercial corridors here in the village. The property was formerly used as a vineyard by Cornell University, and we were looking to acquire that parcel and redevelop it for purposes of the hospital. The hospital is proposed to be about 100,000 square feet. We'll have approximately 25 beds, as well as a series of other systems. As we've talked about previously, part of the changeover that is occurring in healthcare in general is more outpatient services rather than the former heavy bed and long-term stay type arrangements. And in order for Brooks Memorial to be competitive and critically to provide high-level care to this region, they needed to re-envision how they offered that in a facility. This is something that's been done in conjunction with the Department of Health. So they've been part and parcel to our process as far as what we're looking to do in a new facility and how to deliver that health care. The facility, the property itself actually lends itself pretty well to the hospital. The size of it, the ability to set back the hospital a great deal. As we've talked about, it's a setback about 900 feet from the road, which puts it closer into the commercial corridor on 60 rather than the corridor on 20. So this is going to be backing up quite literally to the Walmart site and behind the bowling alley. So that's where the facility itself will be located. As we've talked about, the facility also includes a helipad. We've looked into that. There's been some questions about the frequency of visits to the facility, flight paths, et cetera. I'm happy to kind of briefly cover those tonight. And the helipad usage from our experience and what we expect will be approximately 3 flights per week. So this is a non-storage facility. They come in because there's a patient that needs to be transported, and then they depart. So this is not a place where helicopters will be maintained or anything of that nature. They keep themselves at adjacent airfields. They don't stay here at our facility. The route that they will follow is kind of a large arc, which is shown on this board here. I'm not sure everybody can see it, but it's an arc that comes from the northeast and then comes back out to the northwest. So they're coming in and kind of looping around and out. And that's the primary flight path, unless for some reason they're coming in from the south. But a lot of times this type of facility is not one where necessarily someone would be flown into it. It's flown out of it to need more urgent care. That's the primary use of the helipad. So it's not so much that it's bringing people in as it is bringing people out to receive better care. Higher intensity, not better. My apologies. So that's the purpose of the helipad at the site and the type of usage that we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, I couldn't get noise numbers. I know there's been questions about what are the noise levels. We will still provide that to the planning board. They're typical medevac helicopters. People have experienced them. What exactly the noise level will be here, we don't think it's going to be significant impact on the adjacent property owners, given the distance here. We're 900 feet in. So they fly in, drop in, come out, fly out. So they don't hang around at low levels for any great period of time. They try to get up to altitude and move out. So that's that. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the pilot here tonight. He's in Florida at the moment, so we weren't able to get him here. But we talked to him before the meeting, so that's where I'm getting this information. Relative to other elements of the site plan, as you can see, parking is designed to be right up close to the hospital itself, provide easy access. There's approximately 260 spaces that will be provided from our own internal review and otherwise. This is far in excess of what we think we're going to actually need. It's far in excess of your code, so we feel that the parking is more than sufficient for the facility, visitors, guests, users, etc. So we think parking is certainly well accomplished. Since we last met, we had a great meeting with CARTS and discussed about bringing buses onto the site. The site will easily accommodate them already. The way the building was designed and the site was designed, we won't have any problems bringing buses onto the facility. CARTS has showed a willingness to run an hourly bus through the site as well. So we were happy to see that. Relatively, that's the general layout that you have on the site plan itself. Landscaping is going to be a mix of manicured and more natural areas. We will be removing the vineyards themselves because they become unwieldy if you leave them unmanaged. But otherwise, we're looking at that type of mix of landscaping. We also are looking at, as the board requested the last meeting, to look at putting berming and landscaping along the northwest corner, or I'm sorry, get my campus direction right, southwest corner We're going to have some berming and vegetation in that area. We're looking to put it in to help screen the residential properties on 20 that right now, when you look at the site, you can see all the way to Walmart. So we're going to look at putting some screening vegetation in there. Certainly, traffic's been something that comes up repeatedly. We've submitted a traffic study to the village that looks at it. We've discussed it with the village police department, the school district as well, the DOT, and what we can tell you now is that we're continuing to look at it as far as whether or not there will be an additional access to Route 60. I can tell you the DOT does not want any additional access points to Route 60, but they understand that that might be something we have to investigate further. So we are continuing to look through that. I don't want to say that we're definitively doing it, nor am I going to say that we're definitively not. But we're looking into it further. The real, the issue here is not about traffic safety; it's about traffic volume. Route 20 can handle it without any problem. Both the school and the hospital have dedicated turn lanes out of their facility. There'll be a dedicated turn lane into the facility. We're looking at what the DOT plans on for the school district as far as left turns in. So that's something that we're working through with the DOT. That depends on the depth of the median that they run from the traffic circle. I've also, at the request of the chairman, provided an area map here that gives you a little bit better sense of where is everything going to be in proximity. And as you can see, we're about 300 to 400 feet down from the school entrance, and that puts us about 500 or 600 feet down from the actual intersection of 60 and 20 as far as where our drive is located. So this we brought in to give you a sense, and again, I think it highlights that this is really tucked back into the commercial corridor as far as the building location. It's going to be located at the back. Certainly another issue that comes up is lighting. We are using dark sky compliant lighting on the site, and as we talked about at the last board meeting, those are basically the black box type lighting fixtures that have a downward firing light pattern. They're not the illuminated lanterns that we used to see. They're rarely, pretty much everybody's using dark sky compliant lighting now, and that really helps control and limit light spill. We don't expect that the site is going to, in fact, our lighting study that we submitted with the application showed that there's no light spill off of the site from the lighting. Doesn't mean you're not going to see it, you're going to see it, but it's not something that's going to light up other properties. We hope with both the location and landscaping that'll probably be significantly mitigated as well. So those are kind of the broad overview of the project and the site. The elevations, the renderings speak for themselves. As the architect has mentioned previously, it's something that's meant to reflect the materials and some of the imagery from the region as far as the design goes. It's a two-story building, so you're not talking about a very high structure. So we don't expect this is going to really be something that you visually pick up that much. It's a little bit higher than the Walmart because of the Walmart grade, but that's about it. So that's a project overview. Unless the board thinks there's any other particular issues they'd like me to address before I sit down and we get to hear from the public, I'm complete with my presentation.
Well, I think that's fine, Mark. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Guard, to kind of walk us through how we're going to make this happen.
This is the public comment portion. Basically, it's for any member of the public to come up and talk about the project, any issues, concerns, questions that you might have. It's just so we're all on the same page. It's not a question and answer. It's not a debate. The public gets their 3 minutes apiece to please come to the tall microphone over there, so that helps us with the TV recording. State your name and your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak. I'll keep track of the time. I don't anticipate having any issues, but we're going to try, because we do have a lot of people to hear from. We're going to try to keep things moving along. The only reason that I would stop your comments if there were something was slanderous or not germane to what we're talking about. But like I said, I don't anticipate any problems there. Who's first? Please state your name and your address, please.
My name's Sharon Redfield, 411 East Main. We're in one of the homes directly across from the proposed hospital. I just want to go on the record first as saying that the residents of East Main Street are not anti-hospital, as we've been painted by some officials, not here. we're for a hospital. I don't even seeing the plans, I don't even mind it being over there. Our issues are with the safety, with the traffic. Unfortunately, you said it's all about density. It's not, it's about safety. And I remember several years ago when Cornell moved out, and we knew something inevitably would go in there, and the zoning was changed from agricultural to business or commercial. We were assured several times, no, don't worry. If there's an ingress and egress issue with any of the properties going in there or businesses, that we would make sure they go into Vineyard or 60, because it would be irresponsible, irrational to put it onto East Main. And this is when the school was grades 6 through 12. Now it's grades K through 12. The traffic can be horrendous down there. When we cross the street, in the neighborhood, we call it crossing the river. It's not safe. And it makes no sense to have one entrance and exit into a hospital. You have the traffic circle there. If there's an accident in the traffic circle, where are the ambulances? How are they going to access the hospital that are coming from either direction on 60 or on the other side of 20? If there's an accident in front of the new entrance, in front of the school, in front of Burger King, always seems to be one there, you're gonna have a bottleneck. If the fire department has to access the hospital while everybody's exiting the hospital because of an emergency, how's that gonna work? It just doesn't make sense. When you could at least have an entrance onto 60, I understand Vineyard's built up since this first came up 10, 15 years ago, and there is no rational point at which to put an ingress and egress out there. But to have all of the traffic coming in on East Main Street, you gotta live there to understand it's not that easy, and it's gotten worse over the 17 years we've lived there. Now add a hospital, which I don't mind being there, and have one point of ingress and egress, sorry, makes no sense. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Witcher. I'm at 303 East Main Street. So just a few doors down from Sharon Redfield. And I would echo many things that Sharon said. We certainly on East Main Street welcome a community hospital, and we're, I think, happy that there's investment that's going into keeping a hospital in the area. And, from a personal standpoint, I don't know how many times over the years, raising 3 sons and now grandchildren, I've visited Brooks ER or other facilities. So, it's, I guess, from a selfish standpoint, it might be great to have a hospital right in our neighborhood, but the traffic concerns certainly, I think, are paramount. And with all due respect to the presentation made by the attorney here for the Brooks board, I think it seems a little odd that he talks about it's a question of traffic volume, not traffic safety. I think that traffic volume, when it's heavy, does translate into safety concerns, because after all, I think we've all experienced a point where you can't get out of your driveway, or somebody may make a too sudden a move to get out of, say, the hospital or into the hospital. It does create safety concerns. The more traffic there is going up and down East Main Street, it's not, I think, safe for the children, students who cross regularly to go to and from school. In the high school, they're often going across the street to McDonald's or what have you. So I think it's a concern. And I don't understand if DOT says they're not in favor of further ingress and egress off Route 60. I mean, that's a commercial strip more than Route 20 is. It would make sense to have a second entrance exit onto Route 60 to take some of the volume off Route 20. So I think that's how we kind of universally feel about it, and I hope the planning board takes that into strong consideration when they weigh the plans for the hospital. So thanks very much. I appreciate your time and effort in reviewing this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Richard Ketchum. I live at 22 Burnett. I also was the president and CEO of Brooks Hospital for 23 years. First, I want to state that I also fully agree that a complete modernization or replacement of Brooks Hospital is definitely needed. Whether it's needed in this location is another question, and I realize that's not the purview of this meeting, so I won't go into that tonight. But specific to this location, one, I believe we have to get more definitive information about the traffic study. I've sent a note to the planning board, the mayor. I copied the hospital's attorney, or asked that he provided a copy, as well as Mary LaRoe, the CEO. And there is very good information available about traffic. It was indicated there's about 330 employees. If we pick some number that we expect to be there every day, 250, something like that, you figure out the ingress and egress, that, just doing that times 365 days is over 200,000 visits. It's a big number. I'm not saying the road can't handle it, but I'm saying that's a number. But there's also ER, ambulatory, visitors, deliveries, etc. I do believe the patient traffic numbers are absolutely identifiable, and I ask that they be provided tonight. I hope that that information is available. Some would have to be estimated. Obviously, visitors and such don't have an accurate number. But I think it's very reasonable to say, and I'm not trying to scare anybody with the number, but my quick analysis, which is definitely going to be in the ballpark, is somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million entrants and exits per year. I'm not saying that therefore it can't handle it there. What I'm saying is therefore we must have a second exit. Route 60 seems to be, to me, the logical point. And again, I'd reiterate what the others have said. My children all went to that school. I think anyone who lives in this community has approached the school, whether kids have gone there or not. It is often backed up. Obviously, there's busier times a day. But to think that it's just a volume issue, it's no big deal pertaining to safety, frankly, is disappointing, I guess I'll say, to hear that. It absolutely is a safety issue, and it's a hospital besides. So you've got people that are, you've got young drivers, some at the school, you got people in extremists going into the hospital or scared or nervous about something. It's not a good combination, and it's a lot of traffic. We have to have a second exit, and I think it should be required by the planning board. Thank you.
I'm Ross Conti. I live at 330 East Main. I think I live pretty much underneath the exit flight plan there from the looks of it. Again, first of all, want to applaud the efforts for people to do better for our community. We realize that this could be a tremendous upgrade. Is anybody ever happy about new development, especially in the process of new development in your backyard? Well, maybe not. But I want to share, and I don't want to seem like we're piling on the safety issues here, but this has always been at the forefront of my concerns, both as a person who lives in the neighborhood, but also as a two-sport coach who's at the school pretty much every day and have been for the last 35 years. And I've seen a lot of issues coming and going. And there's a lot of intangibles that we might not be taking into consideration. When I looked at the traffic study, it appeared to me, it kind of read to me like a business plan for a business that wants desperately to do well and is looking at the rosy side of things. It's already a bad situation with traffic. It's not a matter of will it be one, it is. I was involved in a 4-car pileup for a person who didn't stop for traffic that was stopped almost all the way to the village just this past fall. Just 2 weeks ago, I was at the intersection of the school as I was pulling out, waiting for my opportunity to move out. And there was a student that had been standing on a corner for quite some time, the whole time looking at his cell phone. As I've seen many, many times, it appeared to me that that student was waiting for somebody to come pick them up, which is not a good place to be picked up, but we see it happen time and again. When I had my break in the traffic, I pulled on out, and that student walked out across the road without even looking up from his phone, and I had to slam on my brakes. It's going to be a tough situation, and there's a lot of intangibles. Driving is becoming a much more unsafe habit because of technology. People, and I'm sorry, they just don't look up from their phones. And with the traffic circle imminent, you can make all the assumptions that you want about how that will play out and what will that mean to traffic, improvement, not an improvement. You talk all the businesses around there, they've got their concerns about the traffic circle. We certainly do coming out of the school about what that will mean. I've even heard, and I haven't any bearing on this for a fact, but perhaps now the traffic officer will not be there once the traffic circle is in place because they don't want traffic to stop out of the traffic circle. So I don't know what that will play in. We're dealing with a lot of intangibles we just don't know. All the studies in the world will not shed light on those kind of things until it happens. I know that it is already a very difficult situation there at times. And we have seen, like I said, traffic back all the way up to the village. If there's an accident and you have emergency traffic on top of it, it could be difficulty. I guess as much as anything else, we kind of like you save yourselves from the situation. So we implore you to, with all potential, please seek an alternate exit and entrance. Hopefully the quality of life issues will also take place and the landscaping will be such that it'll still be a very nice neighborhood to live in. Okay, we welcome any good addition to the community. So with that, again, thank you for your efforts, but please pursue the safest project possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Brzezowski. I'm at 355 East Main, so I'm in between Redfield and Ross. I would just like to add my voice to the choir that the volume creates the safety issue. I walk regularly up and down this street, particularly when the weather breaks, and it's not unusual in the morning and in the afternoon for the traffic to be backed up from the school all the way to probably Mancuso's. I see it daily, morning and night, and it's just from the school. Then you add things like, I don't think anybody's even realizing the soccer games, they go on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings, and again, it's a pileup around the school. So that's not something that we aren't happy about. We like the activity in the neighborhood, and we certainly do welcome the hospital to the community, but really, it's the traffic volume that just requires an additional entrance for the hospital and an exit. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, anybody out there would like to speak? Well, nothing heard, so I guess this about wraps up the public portion of the meeting. I want to thank all the people who spoke and spoke so articulately on that issue. Believe me, we're very cognizant of that, traffic problem. Well, with that, I'd like to ask Brooks if they have any on-point response or solutions to any of these points that have been raised by the public.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Romanowski for the applicant. We have brought with us tonight the traffic engineer that prepared the traffic impact study, and I'm going to have her come up in a minute and speak to how the numbers were calculated, issues, et cetera. I did want to address real briefly, because I'm the one that had the conversations with the DOT. The DOT's position regarding access point is that they're trying to limit the number of access points in this stretch of 60, not add to the number of access points to Route 60. So that's why they have, initial reaction to this has been they frowned upon any additional access points to Route 60. With respect to the safety issue, I'll let the traffic engineer speak to that. We do have crash data that's provided to us from public resources that's in the traffic study. so that you can look at that data yourself and gauge your numbers. Certainly, we're aware of some of the existing peak hour issues, especially when the school is letting out or letting in. We believe with the traffic circle and the change in the traffic patterns, specifically the effective elimination of left turn outs from the school and the elimination of a complete stop of traffic, but instead to have things flow much more smoothly, that those significant delays around the school patterns will be eliminated. And so that's something we looked at in the traffic study and is in there as well. The school agrees with us. We've met with them. They concur with that plan and that strategy and their belief relative to that. So let me let the expert speak on traffic issues, and so I'll ask Jennifer to come up and address how the report was prepared, talk to volume issues. There's been some numbers thrown around here that are probably a little high, so we'll talk about it. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer McNevich. I'm with the architecture and engineering firm of Clark Patterson Lee, and I'm a traffic engineer who prepared the study. I also want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and voicing their opinions. I've heard what everybody said tonight. I've also read written responses that people have sent in previously, so I wanted to thank people for that. One of the issues that I want to focus on first is the number of trips that are going to be generated by the proposed site. We base it on 330 employees. That does not mean that that's the only factor that comes into calculating the number of trips. How we determine that is there's basically a volume of material. It's the Institute of Traffic Engineers manual, and it contains traffic data from literally decades worth of studies all across the United States. And what they do is they go out and they count a hospital, a residential dwelling, a gas station, and find out how many trips on average get generated by these proposed sites. And then they go back and they say, well, how many people work there? What's the square footage? What's going on at this site? Like, for example, if it's an apartment, is it a 1-bedroom apartment, 3-bedroom apartment? And then they use that so that traffic engineers can figure out, if I have a similar site, what is that traffic going to generate? So, for example, a Tim Hortons that has 12 employees, you know it's not going to generate 12 cars. You're going to have a line of cars that you have to deal with. Similar to a hospital, the 330 employees, we look at similar sites, and that's how we generate the traffic. So it does include all the employees, but it also includes people that are staying there, people that are visiting there, volunteers, clergy, maintenance people. It accounts for all of those numbers. So that 330 is not just the 330. So I wanted to clarify that. With respect to the safety issue, I appreciate everyone's concerns. And what we do as part of the study is we look into the accident information that's available along the corridor. And over the 3-year period that we studied, which is from September 1st, 2015 to August 31st, 2018, there were 4 accidents that were reportable. So that's what we use to base our analysis on. And of those, they were pretty much all rear-end type vehicle accidents where people are stopping, and we're in hopes that the roundabout could help alleviate that, because you're not going to have the constant stop and go that you would have from a traffic signal. But I'm taking into consideration everything that people had said tonight about things that they've personally witnessed along the corridor. So thank you very much. And are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I think we're fine right now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Board. Unless the Board has any other questions, we believe the traffic has been the basis of the bulk of the comments here. We've talked about the landscaping and screening issues as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're still looking at that and whether or not an additional access to 60 is feasible, warranted, and we'll continue to work through that and get back to the board about whether or not we're going to go forward with something along those lines. So we have a lot of things to work through on that particular issue before we can give you a definitive answer. Is there any other questions that the board had, or something else that I may have missed relative to public comment? If so, I'm happy to answer or have the team answer it.
Anybody on the board? Dave?
No.
Okay. No, thank you very much,
Well,
Mark,
then I
appreciate
guess
it.
we're complete. Thank you very much for your time, and we do appreciate the public's comment as well.
Okay, with that, we've pretty well wrapped up the public portion of the meeting tonight. I'm going to move on to any issues that the board has to discuss, like in a normal work session, which is what this would be. You're more than welcome to stay. I don't think it gets very exciting, but you're more than welcome to hear what the board, how the board deliberates, if nothing else. And again, thank you to the Brooks people, and most of all, thank you to you that came up and told us, you know, what's on your mind, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Just put this away. I don't think so. No. Yeah, I'll want Mark.
This is wax of. No, yeah, and then the accidents that happened at that intersection, DOT is already focusing on addressing.
She's here.
Fire away, we're happy to
Yeah,
drop this so you guys can.
it's your
That's why we're
board.
here.
Yeah.
Jennifer, good information. My name's Ron Sellers, I'm a member of the board. When you said that you did your comps, similar hospitals and locations and all that, how detailed did you put into it to compare what's comparable and what might just be similar? Because there's
We did a lot. So we actually, we found out all of the staffing load of the existing hospital. We looked at patient load. We looked at visitors. We did projections based on, market analyses. And what we found is that the manual that we refer to that has all this historic data
Yeah.
versus what we were able to get from Brooks, the data that's in these manuals is actually a little bit higher than what we were able to get from Brooks. So we went with the higher values in order to determine the worst case scenario, and that's what's in the traffic impact study.
based on Brooks traffic,
The Brooks traffic would presumed would
Brooks
be
traffic.
slightly less than what we have in these manual. There are reference manuals basically that we use as our go-to for everything. So that's what we based on. And also there's different metrics in there. Like for a hospital, you can look at urban versus rural. You can look at You can base it on number of beds, square footage, or employees. And using those 3 different metrics, employees was the highest, so that's what we used. So we were trying to find the worst case scenario so that we could see what the impacts would be.
The use of the school as a community center, which it is, do you look at that impact as well?
Yeah, so that's another, so when you're driving around, the typical rush hour is between 4 and 6 p.m. We realized that shift change at the hospital would be around 3:30, which is also when the school's getting out. So we took our traffic data and focused in on that hour rather than the typical rush hour so that we could capture what's going on at the school as well as the hospital and still come up with the worst case scenario.
So you just did the data and crunched it together. You looked at your books and the other stuff and you did
Yeah,
the desk analysis.
So what we did, in order to get our baseline, we went out physically and counted all the vehicles that are coming out of the school and all the vehicles that are at, the interchange of I-90 and 60. And we actually have real data counts of all of those locations so that we have a very strong baseline of the existing conditions.
I read that.
Yep.
Saw that. It was really well done. Commercial traffic, I didn't see that. The Walmart effect and the other traffic that comes across 20 and 60 and the trucks that go through. And the hospital location is great. There's no question about that in my mind. But the unintended consequence isn't clarified in my mind
Okay,
at all.
okay. So how can I help clarify?
I just want to know what your sources were.
Okay,
I think you need to look at it more carefully, really.
okay.
There's real people in real cars. The study was great. However, what's the real impact going to be? There's a
Right.
lot of variables that you left out.
I like what was said tonight about sports activities, soccer games and things like that, when there's a lot of traffic there too. Was that taken into consideration, or just the basic traffic for going to and from school?
Yeah, we focused in on what happens during the school dismissal times so that we could, knowing that shift change was going to be the worst time frame from the hospital. So we focused in on that time frame. So if there's an after-school activity or, soccer event or something happening in the evening, we didn't necessarily capture that. Is on top of all of that, the traffic along Route 20 is worse, during that time frame, between, we looked at the historic data, the traffic is worse on 20, highest at 20, between noon and 6 p.m.
We're a small village, and this is not exactly a growing community,
Right.
but it might be.
Right,
It might be. And I would like you to anticipate that as well.
okay. And that's built into the model as well. There's so we have the baseline conditions where we've gone out and count, and then we extrapolate out to what we anticipate this would be built in 2020.
Extrapolate based on what?
Historic growth rate. So we worked with DOT to figure out what the growth rate would be. So we took that existing baseline and added a 6% per year growth rate to add that traffic to it. So it's natural traffic growth plus any potential developments that might come along the way to make that baseline in 2020 higher than what it is right now. And then on top of that, we take that and then we add the hospital
So that's
traffic.
New build,
Our new build, correct,
as
yeah,
opposed to the old build, if you will.
correct. So it's existing is right now when we count, and then we've got a no-build condition in 2020, which has that 0.6% added to it. And then there's a build, which is the 0.6 plus the hospital traffic.
Brian?
Now, I have some experience with other hospitals. And in one particular case in another town, somewhere else, a hospital was built, and it wasn't until there were some fatalities, just because of what the tipping point was and what the driver's abilities were and what the access to the main road was and all of that stuff. And it wasn't until after a couple of kids got killed crossing the street.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen for sure.
And and one was a head-on collision. They couldn't, someone tried to cross the street quickly in a car, and there were 5 people killed? So just look real, real hard, please,
Yes.
with real data.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, the data she's using is real data. I mean, it's DOT data.
Anecdotal stuff, too. You know,
Well,
just
you
take a
you
look at
can't-
what could.
You can't estimate without doing anecdotal, so.
I get that.
So we took real data from the DOT, real data from counts that we took, real data from the hospital, and then had to build an estimate off of that. I respectfully don't know where you think there's a lack of accurate baseline data that we're using.
Sometimes driving the streets yourself at different times is,
Well, we
confirm.
had people out on the field, on the intersection, right in front of where the hospital is gonna be doing the traffic counts. So this wasn't done, you know, you mentioned desk data. This wasn't done at a desk. This was done in the field. This was done with DOT people that were in the field. Then after all that number was taken, and then that's how the traffic study was prepared. So we're not disrespecting the concerns over safety. That's not our point. But the data that was used to prepare this traffic impact study was done thoroughly and completely with every bit of data that we can gather. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
I know what the data says, but the intangibles, and you guys are smart at this, you know, just think about what it might look like in 10 years. And I would just hate to see a mistake made, because we'd live with it forever.
Yeah, understood, and so would Brooks.
I know.
Okay. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I was curious if you had any updates on the condition of the barn, whether that was going to be used or not.
I don't think we got into it yet, Joe. No, Joe, we haven't gotten into it yet. We still expect, we'd really like to reuse it.
Sure. I mean, even if you're just using the cement pad, I'm assuming you're going to relocate. My question is primarily, how would it possibly affect the entrance the way it exists, and/or to avoid you having to come back and say, oh, we need to build a maintenance building somewhere we didn't talk about yet?
We will get in there before your next meeting,
Okay.
all right? So we'll have definitive answers. Not fair to you guys to say that's floating in the air.
Right. And then the other question I have is there any, since the DOT clearly doesn't want any more entrances or exits onto Route 60, is there anything that they can do to force anybody else's hand to make it so that you can get in and out through the bowling alley entrance or exit, or through Walmart's exit or entrance, or something of this sort? Is there something they have, since they have the power to not allow it, do they have the power to force it?
That would be a governmental taking, which is quite an onerous path. And,
Sure.
we would rather try to see if we can work it out ourselves privately, and that's.
Has there
that's
been
what
any
we're looking
progress
at.
with getting an easement from any other of the parties that could potentially connect to you?
We haven't gotten to that stage because we're still trying to figure out the need, the design, and then we can look at the location, and then the location gets into feasibility issues of, can we get it from a particular landowner, or, you know, can we use an existing drive? Or so it's in progress. We just don't have anything to report to you tonight about
Okay.
where that progress has led us, because we haven't reached anywhere near a conclusion on that.
Okay, thanks.
But we understand it's a critical question to this board. Yep, absolutely, we understand that.
Mark, has there been any other thoughts about the pedestrian
Yeah,
issues we
we've-
discussed?
Yeah, we looked at it, and pedestrian access is really something we don't envision being something that's used here a great deal at this facility, given its location, and generally you don't have patients walking into the hospital. If anything, we might have our staff trying to get out to Tim Hortons or McDonald's or Walmart or whatever. That's probably the more likely scenario than it is people that need to go to the facility coming there. Also, the expense was extraordinary. Just doing a single width extension on one driveway loop was going to cost over $30,000. And that's just quite a bit for the hospital to absorb on a use that we don't envision there's going to be a great demand for it. So at this point in time, we're probably not going to pursue a pedestrian pathway to the hospital itself, a dedicated one, that is.
It's very frustrating. I anecdotally drove by Brooks the other day, and people walking back and forth, going in and out of the building from all directions. There's sidewalks all the way around the building. It's It's a local hospital that people walk to. They shouldn't have to drive there or get a carts bus or get an Uber or a taxi. They should be able to walk to the hospital. That's crazy.
We appreciate your concern. We've also looked at other facilities we've had that are similarly located, and we didn't have any evidence of significant walk-up in very similar locations. So we appreciate it, and we took it seriously, and we're looking into it. But when you look at $30,000 for a path that we don't think is going to be used, as it impacts whether or not we provide, critical equipment within the facility or dedicated monies toward the facility, that's a hard number for us to write for something that we don't see as a serious, not a serious, a significant demand. Let's say, put it that way.
It definitely won't be if you can't do it. That's true for sure.
Anything else, Dave?
No.
Okay. Well, again, thanks, Mark, and
Yeah,
thank
we
you.
hope to see you in about your next meeting next month. We'll let everyone know. We want to make some progress on this. So what we're going to do, so the board understands, is we're going to take these public comments that we've received, also the public comments that have been sent to Mr. LaBarbera via email or mail or hard copies, prepare some responses to those, also prepare some responses to the questions that the board has asked along the way that we haven't yet been able to answer, the noise on the helicopter, for instance, being one. These are the kind of things we're going to look at. We'll also come back to you with a revised set of plans. Certainly, for instance, the landscaping is going to be different. So we're going to look at that and revise that and submit that to the board. So we're going to be looking at these things between now and the next time we come to the board. And we hope by that next meeting we'll have some definitive answers about Route 60 access so that we can discuss it further at that meeting with some real information.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask too. Is there an image somewhere with the rest of this circle for where the helicopter route is?
I don't have that. We can get that
Okay.
to you and submit it, but it's basically coming up from the north, loops back around and back out to the north. They're just doing a big loop.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody who is underneath it's going to want to know. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely understandable. We'll give you that. We'll also try to get some altitude data so you
Yeah.
can see what height they're at as they climb out of there. The orientation, the way they have to fly in and out of the site is generally for prevailing winds. So they want to fly in or out of them so they're not fighting crosswinds as they're lifting off and coming down. So that's why this orientation is this way, is to deal with that. The primarily, you got that northeast, out of the southwest, but the northeast direction primarily. So that's why it's oriented in that direction.
Thanks.
So what you're saying is it's gonna come up and go over Walmart versus going over the neighbors on East Main Street?
It's going to be behind the neighbors on East Main Street. If you look at the other map, and you try to take that arc out, you take that arc out, and it's going to come back in here is the way the arc is going to
It's going to go out over
perpetuate.
Clinton.
So here's the helipad on the site. So we've marked the helipad. So you take that arc that you show down there and you run it out. So yeah, it's primarily over you got farmland and vacant land in here. But I know there's residential development here. But what height they're going to be by the time they get there, that's the biggest factor on noise level, is how high they get up to that, at that particular point. And that's why we've got to get that data. I would have had the pilots here tonight if I could have physically gotten them here. I just wasn't able to do so. But we'll get it to you in a submission.
I guess in the same, you mentioned you already talked to the carts people.
Yes.
And I'd love any more, you said it'd be approximately hourly or something that they'd be
Yes.
going through, but if you could tell us what route, they've got like different routes or different buses.
They don't
going
know
through.
yet. So
Okay.
the part they couldn't give us is, well, what route it is. What they want to do is look at what volume's going to go through here, how it impacts existing routes, whether they can put it in existing route. They don't want to create delays on a route.
Right.
So they said, they haven't done that part yet.
Okay.
They just said, we're willing and able to provide a bus on an hourly basis to the site. Where it fits into their overall operations, they need to work through.
That's
So
great.
Essentially, they're just committed to doing it.
They're committed to
They
doing
haven't
it.
figured out how to do it yet.
Yes, but they didn't think they had a capacity issue.
Yeah.
It was really more logistics than anything else.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay,
Anything else?
oh, we got you.
Nope.
Yeah, well, you got me.
Okay, again, thanks, Mark.
All right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
We
And I
appreciate
do
it.
appreciate your analysis too, of the traffic study.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Okay, moving right along, do we have any other issues for the board you want to discuss in open meeting? Mr. Building Inspector, do you have anyone? Okay,
No, I'm good.
well, nothing heard, I guess an adjournment is in order.
Do you want to schedule a meeting?
Yeah, that's right, we do need to schedule another meeting. I was thinking somewhere around next Monday or Tuesday.
Monday works for me.
Yeah, Monday might be good.
I'm pretty terrible Monday and Tuesday,
I
but
mean,
I'm terrible for the next 2 weeks.
But we're gonna have to try to squeeze one in before
Monday's bad.
you have to leave. I'm even open on a weekend if you want.
Okay, because Ron, you're gonna be out of town, right? Later in the year.
Until March 1st or something.
Okay.
27th.
27th, yeah, that's when I'm leaving as well. And
So even
I see.
Saturday morning or Saturday.
you up for a weekend, Dave?
Yeah, sure. This weekend is fine in the morning, sure.
Rick?
What time would you think?
No, not too early, it's a Saturday.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock is good.
I'm not available until 10, 11:30, but you're more than welcome to
Okay, 11 o'clock then.
start without me.
Yeah, why don't we make it 11? I'll bring the donuts.
This Saturday?
Yeah. We gotta finish as much as we can, because we got, ultimately the 20th coming up.
Is anything,
So the 23rd,
any more on the comprehensive?
did we say 10? 11?
Oh,
We said 11.
did we,
Is that okay with you?
did you get the email about the joint meetings?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all it is.
In the week, but it'll work out fine.
Okay, anything else?
No.
So we're gonna do it Saturday?
Yep.
No, that's dedication. I'm really proud of you guys. Give up your Saturday. With that then, I declare the meeting adjourned.